We're going to take some time today. We're going to look at reviewing a little bit of algebra that we're going to need. Physics is a very math-heavy course. A lot of the equations we'll be using throughout this year will need to be manipulated. Some of them will have numbers, some of them won't. So this is an important review as we get into the meat of our content this year.
So when we want to manipulate equations, we have to undo PEMDAS. PEMDAS is how we solve an equation to find a value. When we're trying to unsolve an equation and manipulate our equation back around, we do PEMDAS in the reverse order. So first we'll start with our addition or subtraction. We'll find whichever one comes first and undo that piece. Then we'll move on to multiplication or division, undo that piece, find out where our variable is and isolate it by itself. And then finally we'll do exponents. So that can be squares or square roots, undoing those pieces. And then usually we don't often see parentheses, but if we do, we break those apart, take care of what's inside, undo that, and usually by that point we'll have our variable by itself. Let's take a look at an equation where we have some numbers instead of some variables so we can get some practice with this. Alright, so let's take a look at a multi-step equation with numbers here. So we have 4 equals 2 pi times the square root of 3 over k. When we take a look at this, the first thing we might notice is that value pi is in here. We know pi to be a number, and we can substitute that number in here and calculate 2 times pi. So let's go ahead and do that. Do 2 times 3.14 to get 6.28. We don't need to do anything with the square root of 3 over k yet, because it's just 2 times pi, 6.28. What we'll do now, we notice that these two values are multiplied by each other, and we're trying to solve for k, so we will divide both sides by 6.28. 6.28 on the right side here will cancel out. We can use our calculator to figure out what it would be on the left side. Here we get a value of 0.63694267. We can shorten that down to 0.637. We'll round that last digit up because there's a 9 after it. Once we're here, we need to get rid of the square root, and we can do that by squaring both sides. Here I got a value of 0.405. 6 that we're going to round up to 0.406. After this step, we want to get k by itself on the top. So what we will do, we'll set 0.406 over 1, so we have fractions on both sides. Now we will cross multiply to get k on top. Slide this up to the top over here, but we know that 3 times 1 is 3. At this point, we know that if we want k by itself, we can divide both sides by 0.406. That will give us our answer. And we can round up to k equals 7.39. And that's how you solve a multi-step equation with numbers.
So now that we've looked at an equation with numbers, you'll notice that this is the exact same equation, we've just taken the numbers out of it. And just like the last time, we're going to want to solve for k. So this is what I want to solve for. So let's look at how to do that without numbers. Remember, just like last time, we used the opposite order of PEMDAS. So we want to take care of any addition or subtraction first. Don't have any of those. So I can actually skip that step again. Now I take care of multiplication and division. I notice 2 pi is multiplied by my root, so I want to undo that. How do I undo a multiplication? I divide. And anything I do to one side of an equation, I must do to the other side. So I've divided both sides by 2 pi. Over here I have 2 pi divided by 2 pi. Since I have the same thing on the top and the bottom, they will cancel out. Now I can simplify a little bit. So I have t over 2 pi here. And that's equal to the square root of m over k. So I notice that this is all inside the square root, so I need to undo the square root next. To undo a square root, I take the square. And again, anything I do to one side, I must also do to the other. So now I have the square root squared, so that will cancel. And I can do a little bit more simplifying. Now I have t over 2 pi all squared is equal to m over k. Remembering I want to solve for k, it's on the bottom of a fraction. I don't have a fraction over here, but I can always put it over 1. So now that I have a fraction on both sides, I can cross multiply. I can cross multiply, and I'm going to write that over here so I have a little more room. I have m is equal to k times the quantity t over 2 pi all squared. Now I'm looking to get k by itself. I have a multiplication. To undo, I divide both sides by that term. I've divided both sides by that term. They cancel out on this side, so I can simplify a little bit. After I've simplified, I have solved for k. This would be the answer. K equals m over the quantity t over 2 pi, all squared.
All right, so you've seen a few with numbers and some without numbers. Let's try some of the homework problems. This is 4b from our homework that we had. D equals b plus 1/2 ay squared. We're solving for y in this problem, so what we'll need to do is isolate it by itself on one side, which means we need to get rid of all these and put them on this side. So first thing, we see b plus 1/2 ay squared. You have this addition sign here. We can take care of that through reverse PEMDAS, moving b to the other side through subtraction. So now we have d minus v equals 1/2 ay squared. Take care of this 2. This 2 could be rewritten as ay squared over 2, or as a fraction out in front. Either way, we'll need to multiply this term by 2. When we do to one side, we'll do to the other. So now we have 2 times the value of d minus v equals ay squared. Now what we need to do to get y by itself is divide both sides by a. This division here cancels out this a multiplied by the y. And now, to undo the y squared, we just take the square root of both sides. For our final value of y equals the square root of 2 times d minus v all over a.
So we've seen how to solve for b. Now let's take a look at 4c for the homework. The equation it gives us is f equals g times big M times little m all over y squared. We're still solving for y. First thing I need to do is recognize that g is multiplied by this term. To undo a multiplication, I divide. I have g on both the top and the bottom over here, so it will now cancel out. After I simplify, I notice that I have a fraction is equal to another fraction. Seeing that, I know I can cross multiply. Now I've cross multiplied, I have f times y squared is equal to g times m times little m. To get y by itself, I divide both sides by f now. F is canceled out on the left because I have it both on the top and the bottom of the fraction. Let's simplify again. Now I have y squared is equal to g times big M times little m over f. To undo the square, I take the square root of both sides. The square root of something squared cancels out. And when I simplify it, I'm left with y equals the square root of g times big M times little m all over f. Hopefully this review has helped you with the practice that we've been doing. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to myself or Mr. Flowers through email, through Schoology, getting in contact with us some way. We're here to help you. You can also reference the answer sheet that came with the homework. If you're not getting those, then you may want to reach out and get some extra help with us. Jump into office hours or whatever you might need. Good luck. If you have questions, ask.